mean self-indulgence. This is like you have devotee care, so who cares for the devotee? Who cares for the other devotees? We have to care for ourselves so we can care for others. So it's devotee self-care. What's that? Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Devise Sasanyavadi Paschati Panchakalpa Durubhyascha Kripasindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnava Namo Namaha Namo Mahavananaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Swami Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Chise Namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. We're going to need to plug this in. So I think you're probably going to need an extension, right? And I'd like to plug it on the left side. Can it go behind? It's not long enough? All right. Maybe we just go. I don't need. Thank you. You don't have to bring me water. I bring my own water. I have to drink warm water, so I brought warm water with me. So if you want to give me water, it should be warm. You could make this a little lower, no? Krishna, you have EQ on this? Can you just put everything like in the center? Hare Krishna, yeah, that's better. Isn't that better? Yes? Maybe. You know, in India, everyone's hard of hearing. Did you know that? Everyone's ears are damaged. Did you know that? It's the buses and the loud music. You don't realize it, but as Americans, we realize it. Because we talk, if we don't talk really loud, you can't hear us. But every other country, they can hear us. And you have really loud music, and it doesn't bother you. So you don't realize your ears are, probably many of your ears are damaged, and you don't realize it, because things are much louder in this country. I think in Western world, it'd be illegal to have buses that loud. That level of decibel would be illegal. You know your buses are louder than an American rock concert? It's true. It's true. You don't know because you're hard of hearing, because your ears are damaged. Anyway, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai jai go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. I'll introduce myself. I can introduce myself. Half the time when they introduce me, they're reading a biography that was taken off the internet 10 years ago, and it's not current. And I'm like, where did you get that biography? Everything is like, I don't do any of that anymore. Let me see it. Where does it start? How do we get to the rest of it? It's newer, but not newest. Anyway, you can read it. There's only one thing wrong, just the email, just the website.
Hare Krishna. So we are so fortunate to have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu.
Thank you.
So we're so fortunate to have Association Sri Prabhupada disciples. So Prabhuji was born in Los Angeles, and in '69, at the age of 90, he first met Sri Prabhupada through Bhagavad Gita as it is, and later he met Sri Prabhupada personally in Los Angeles. And in 1970, he moved into temple in Berkeley, California, and shortly after receiving first and
Silver
second initiation.
luggage. There's a blue bag. It has USB sticks. The USB sticks are the workshops and music. So the blue sticks are the music, and the black sticks are the. So they should go out on the table with these posters.
Courses and books, both for devotees as well as the general public, through the company's Satva. He practically shows in many ways that Krishna consciousness offers solutions to today's challenges and writes and teaches in a way that resonates with devotees and people in general by helping them see life as a spiritual practice. And third is well known in his song for his recorded and live music, most notably his recording of Brahma Samhita, but also for his workshop on such essential topic as japa, forgiveness, community vows, and marriage.
Wait a minute. You have Bluetooth? All right, let me connect. I will play you something after he finishes.
So, how many were there last year from Japa workshop? So, after the Japa workshop, Suresh had called me last year that he joined the online workshop for self-care, and I could not join. So I said that Prabhuji will do it for all devotees. Will come next year and do for all devotees. And the self-care workshop is very, very special. I've heard the religion who had attended it, he very much liked it. So he said that all devotees attended and they will really benefit from the self-care workshop. So this workshop is going to be 7-hour workshop, but you will not feel how 7 hours are passing by.
7 hours is not enough. We need at least 3 full days just to get started.
And the beauty, what I found, I first time attended Prabhuji's forgiveness seminar. And really it had so much impact in my life, because many of the things I was trying to apply, I was not able to apply. But the way it was there in that seminar, the emotions, and how to apply the proper teachings. So that the gap between we do apply the teachings to Prabhupada, the Prabhuji fills up by his seminar. So forgiveness is an imperative, it's an inherent quality for a jiva, and is very much a part of Vaishnava philosophy. So many times we're not able to apply. But the way Prabhuji takes it, it becomes so easy. Same with the japa, and same with this self-care. So let us welcome Prabhuji one more time, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Okay, now I'm going to give you a present. And I think we did this last year. Did we? The Brahma Samhita? Okay. Because many of you have heard the Brahma Samhita that I recorded 30 years ago, but this is a new version. So we'll just play a few minutes just to get in the mood. Is that okay? If you know the words, you can sing with it. And if you don't know the words, you should learn them. Okay. You like that? I like it. I mean, how could we not like it? It's transcendental. Raise your hand if you have not memorized these verses. Okay, we're going to take a little moment so all of you who don't know this can cry, that you haven't learned it. So you can all cry for a few seconds. I don't know this. And maybe you can learn it. It's Lord Chaitanya chanted this every day. Yeah. So one thing we're going to do during this workshop is we're going to recite affirmations. And I want to say something about affirmations. Hold on a second. Make this better and bigger. Yeah. So the affirmations you'll be asked to recite in this course are taken from course principles. They are put into positive statements in order to transfer the teachings from your head to your heart. Affirmations have power when you feel the affirmation while you recite them. So, sometimes you understand something, but you don't feel anything. Like, you may understand you should be humble, but you may not feel like being humble. Like you feel like being honored. But my head, I know in my head, I've heard it, I've learned it, I should be humble, I should be respectful, I should appreciate other devotees, I shouldn't criticize. But I feel like criticizing. It's fun. It excites me. It makes me feel good to put somebody else down. That makes me feel better, right? Material conditioned mind. Yes? So, you understand something with your head, but you don't feel like doing it. It's a problem, isn't it? That you could think of so many things right now that you know you understand that you don't feel like doing. Correct? Correct?
Yes.
Krishna. There's too much high end on this. Can you turn the high end down? Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. That's better, yeah. More bass, maybe? Krishna. So make it sound like I'm on the radio. No. Krishna Chaitanya. No, that's the wrong button. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Sri Advaita. That's better. Sri Advaita. Yeah. Better, right? Sort of. And then make it a little lower so it doesn't feed back. Krishna Govinda. Can you still hear me? Better, yeah. Okay. So, when we recite an affirmation, we might recite an affirmation and you might think, but I don't even believe that affirmation. I don't even feel it. Like we could recite an affirmation, I feel lower than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. And while you're reciting it in your mind, you're thinking, I don't feel lower than a blade of grass. I don't even want to be lower than, I hope I never feel lower than a blade of grass. So, but the idea with the affirmation is, you say it like you feel it. You say it like you believe it. Because it then connects intelligence with the heart. Because so many things we hear, they don't go to the heart. And when it doesn't go to the heart, we don't really do anything. We just know, right? Okay, I can give a lecture on what to eat and what not to eat. And you could understand everything. 7 hours, you know exactly what to eat and what not to eat if you want to live 100 years. Does that mean you're going to do it? If I didn't connect you emotionally, you won't. It's like, that's going to be austere. I don't really care. I don't have to be that healthy. But if you really feel, no, I want to be healthy, 100-year-old, I want to be running marathons and dancing in kirtans, then you have an emotional experience connected to what you learned. And that emotional experience impels you to want to do it. Now, some of you have read the Japa Affirmations book. And the Japa Affirmations was to take an idea, a principle that we teach in the Japa workshop, and get it into your consciousness and your heart so it becomes part of the way you see the world and feel. Does that make sense? So what we ask you to do, as stated on this slide, is when we say an affirmation, we want you to say it as if it's true for you in the present. That's how you do it, right? So later on, we're going to recite an affirmation. It's going to say, Krishna loves me, even if I don't love him. Maybe you don't believe that. You say, why would Krishna love me if I don't love him? Why would anybody love me? You know, you might feel like that. But when you say the affirmation, you have to say it as if you believe it's true and as if you feel it as you're saying it. So when you say, Krishna loves me even if I don't love him, you feel Krishna, you force yourself to feel Krishna's love. So that's, and we're going to be reciting lots of affirmations. Clear? Sat, clear, TK? Botacha. Okay. So I have a slideshow of level 1 and level 2. And we don't have time to do both. So when you see me skipping through slides, it means one of two things. Either I'm going to explain what's in those slides in connection with other things because it'll be quicker. I'm going to put them all together, maybe, 5, 10 slides, maybe a whole section. I'll bring it in at another time. Or I don't feel it's as important as other sections, so I don't want to miss certain other sections. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is let you know that whatever I say, 93% you'll forget, unless you write it down. So everyone these days has a phone. If you don't have paper, you can write it down on your phone. Anything that you feel is valuable, that you think, that's a good point, do not assume you will remember it, assume you will forget it. I even forget things I teach, what to speak of you. And this is like the 10th time I've taught this course. I have a section on my phone, that note section? And I write things on the notes. And whenever I fly in planes, I go through the note section. And I'm like, oh, I forgot this. I've read this on every flight in the last 10 years, and I still forgot it. Because some things are like, they're kind of deep and subtle, and you think you know it, but you don't. You ever notice you have like a little open part in your brain where things go in and fall out? Have you noticed that? And you think you remember it, and then you go to look for it, and you don't find it, right? So that's one thing. It's important, whatever you want to remember, and there will be many things here that I think will be important for you. Take a note. Don't assume you'll remember. And we're going to do exercises. And in all my workshops, we do exercises. And exercises are a way that you can practically apply to your life what you're learning. Because if we don't do that, then it's just in your head and it won't necessarily mean anything to you, right? Like in our movement, we hear a lot of lectures. The advantage of doing workshops is we have time to take what we're learning and we can practice it. So everyone here is going to be doing exercises. It's really important. Don't just think, well, I'm just coming here to listen. Yeah. Do you go to a restaurant and you say, oh, I'm just you go into the restaurant and they say, you want a table? No, I'm just coming here to look. And they're looking at you like, why would you come here to look? Like, if people come to my workshop and they go, oh, I'm not going to participate, I'm just coming here to listen. I was like, but it doesn't work that way. It's like looking at other people eat. It doesn't work, doesn't help you, does it? You're going to sit here and watch everyone do the exercise, right? And stare out in space? No. So we all need to do the exercise. This is how it works. Okay? Can we all agree to do the exercises? Raise your hand if you agree. If you don't raise your hand, come up here and I'll beat you up until you agree. That is not nonviolence, that's mercy. So, what is self-care? Self-care in a Krishna conscious context means to care for all aspects of ourselves in ways that nurture our spiritual lives. This also means avoiding thoughts and actions that are harmful to ourselves and or allowing others to treat us in harmful ways. This aligns with the first two principles of surrender. doing what is favorable for devotional service and avoiding what is unfavorable. Does anyone know the Sanskrit to that? Yeah, right. Very good. Very good. Anukulyasa sankalpa, accepting what is favorable. Patikulasya, and rejecting what is unfavorable. There's 6 items of surrender in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the first 2 items. And these first 2 items perfectly define what is self-care. Because when we talk about self-care, some devotees think, oh, what's he going to do? Tell us to go to a spa and get a massage? You know, tell the women to get their nails done and their hair done? Is that what this, you know, go buy some new saris and jewelry, you know? That's self-care. And, you know, the brahmacharis, you know, just don't go to Mangalarti tomorrow, sleep in, take care of yourself, you know. So some people, like, they don't, you know, I mean, it's not that these things you might, you know, if you might do this in some sense or something similar, but self-care is not self-indulgence. In the Krishna conscious context, it totally aligns with these 2 principles. What is ever favorable for bhakti, do it. Whatever is not favorable, don't do it. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever done something? I already know the answer. The answer is yes, in case I give you, in case you don't understand the question. The answer is yes, before I ask it. Have you ever done something which is not favorable for your bhakti? Okay, yeah, I already know the answer. Why is he asking if he already knows? Just to make sure that you know that I know that this is the answer that you're supposed to give. Have you ever done something, ever not done something that is good for your bhakti? So, haven't done something which is good and not done something, I've done something which is bad and I haven't done something which I should do which is good. Yeah. Have you ever done that? Yes. All right. Have you ever done that? Yes. Have you ever done that? Yes. Yeah. If you haven't done that, you're an avatar. But if you're not an avatar or empowered incarnation or Shakti Tattva, if you're an ordinary conditioned human being, yeah, you've done that. Doesn't mean you're still doing it. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, but you have done it. Wouldn't it be nice to attain a state of consciousness in which you would only do things that are good for you? Wouldn't that be amazing? Wow. Could you imagine living a life like that? And if anything was bad, you could never do something bad for yourself. Like somebody said, you want to do this, and this is not good for your bhakti, you would automatically say, no. Not even a problem to say no. So no, I wouldn't do that. It's not good for my bhakti. Wouldn't that be nice? Now, can I make you feel miserable for a minute? Part of my teaching technique is occasionally to make you feel miserable. The deities are happy about that. Why would I want to make you feel miserable? Because if we're doing something which is not good for us, we should feel miserable. That's good. That would be wrong not to feel miserable. Wouldn't it be? Like you know, Prabhu, you did something really bad. Jagannath Swami ki jai. You know, Prabhu, you did something really bad. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I know, who cares? I'm just human. Don't you think that would be something wrong with that response? Prabhu, you know, you just ate some bread, it has eggs in it. Yeah, I was hungry, whatever, you know, I'm just human, you know. Prabhu, don't be a fanatic. It's only eggs, you know. It's not like I ate the cow or anything. If a devotee said that, you'd think, this devotee is puggle, right? Or something's wrong with him. Right? Wouldn't you? Yes. Okay, now, meditate on this. I'm going to make you feel bad, but it'll be good if I make you feel bad, because by making, just like, let's say you're not healthy, and every time I see you, I go, you look really fat and sick. Maybe you ought to do something. And you'd feel offended, right? And every time I see you and you got a big belly, and I go, punch your belly, I go, it's too big. You got to chop it off. And I'd be, really pushing you. And one day you come back fit and thin, and you say, I hated when you did that, but I got so frustrated, I started taking care of myself. So that frustration pushes you. So feeling bad is good when you should feel bad about something. Does that make sense? Like if you're doing something, it's unhealthy, and you don't feel bad about it, something's wrong with you. You're not going to improve. So I'm going to make you feel bad. Do I have your permission? Okay. Good. There's this super interesting, maybe I can read it on my phone. This is so interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, unless you're an Ayurvedic physician or you've studied Ayurveda. But this is fascinating. And after I read it, you might say, well, that didn't make me feel bad. And just wait a minute, I'll make you feel bad. Just give me time. Okay? I could explain it, but I'd rather read it. Are you ready? Turn to the devotee next to you and tell him, I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay, now, just have to make sure, Self-care could be replaced with the word self-respect. Or in other words, it could be a synonym. Self-care or self-respect is an aspect of self-care. In Ayurveda, the term for self-respect is called pragya. No. The term for lack of self-respect is called pragya aparad. Pragya aparad, which means offense to our intelligence. Have you ever heard that before? I've heard of nam aparad, Vaishnav aparad, dam aparad, seva aparad. Before I was a devotee, I never even knew the word offense. Offense like around your house, I knew that, offense. But the word offense, nobody used that. At least, I don't know. Use that word excuse me, sir, you're offending me. Did you ever, you got in front of me in line. You are offending me. But when you become a devotee, then that word is you use it every day. Isn't it? Prabhu, that's an offense. You touched that with your left hand. That's offensive. And, you walked in front of that devotee. He got initiated 3 minutes before you. That's an offense. Isn't it? You want to hear a funny story? I took my sister to the temple. Well, she lived near the temple in LA. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but devotees are always like, Prabhu, eat this with your dal, it's good for digestion. Or eat this after your meal, this chach, it's good for digestion. Or if you take ginger with your meal, it's good for digestion. My sister's like, all you guys talk about is digestion. Did you talk about anything else but digestion? So we don't realize these things because, we're numb to it. Digestion and offenses. Yeah, right. So now you have a new offense. You thought there were only 4? No, there's more. There's 5 categories. You offend your own intelligence. This is so interesting. Pragya aparad translates to crimes against intelligence. Crimes against, did you realize you can commit a crime against your own intelligence? Isn't that beautiful? It's such a It's like, how can I commit a crime against my own intelligence? Well, who's giving you the intelligence? Paramatma. So Paramatma says, this is what you should do, and you say, whatever. So, we say, I'm offending myself, so I'm not caring for myself, but ultimately I'm offending Paramatma. Okay. You know better, yet you continue doing that thing which is harming you. Have you ever done that? Have you ever like, I know I shouldn't do this, and then 3 seconds later, you do it. Well, thanks for telling us you shouldn't do it. That's really informative. I'm glad you told us. It's like it's kind of like, if you make an excuse, you don't feel as bad, isn't it? I mean, why do we make excuses? Just so we don't feel guilty, isn't it? Basically. Yes? I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it. So now it's like I don't feel guilty because I told everybody I know I'm smart enough to know it's bad for me, and I'm going to do it. All right. I want to talk about this because it's so important. But I'm going to continue reading. Pragya aparad is made out of 2 words, pragya and aparad. Pragya refers to knowledge or intellect. Aparad means offense, transgression, fault, volitional transgressions. Voluntary transgression. It's not accidental. Erroneous deeds done on account of the impairment of intellect, wisdom, and memory. So that's a lot of synonyms for aparad, but in this connection, it's like, I know what to do, and I'm voluntarily impairing my intellect, basically. I'm voluntarily neglecting to listen to what is common sense and good for me. Have you ever done that? When was the last time you did that? Well, we haven't had breakfast yet. I'll ask you that question after breakfast. Pragya aparad is described as an offense against wisdom, and in Ayurveda it's considered the root cause of all disease. Oh my God, that's great. We have any Ayurvedic students, doctors here? When you do something against your intelligence, how do you feel? Guilty? Stressed? Like how do you feel when you do something wrong? Is that a good feeling? No, you feel like I'm out of integrity with the person I want to be. I'm not acting the way I know I should. And more importantly, not only I'm not acting according to how I should, I'm not acting according to how I want to act. That's where the paradox gets intense, because I want to be this way. You ever see a devotee and say, I wish I could be like him or her? And when you're not like him or her, you don't feel good. You feel like, this is not the person I want to be. Sometimes, have you ever done something and then you told yourself, I hate myself when I do that? Right, so what is that? How does that feel to hate yourself? It's like a horrible feeling, isn't it? So it on a subconscious level, it's very stressful. And we try to suppress stress so you're not even aware of it. And Ayurveda says, therefore it's causing disease, because stress is the main cause of disease, according to Ayurveda. Yes? So if you want to stay healthy, don't become a temple president. That's all I can say. Because, I joke. Before I was a devotee, I said, they say, Chant Hare Krishna, and, no anxiety. I said, I didn't know what anxiety was until I became a temple president. So I didn't really know what anxiety was before I joined the Hare Krishna movement. And then I knew what it was afterwards. Anyway, yeah. So now, since you gave me permission, I'm going to make you feel bad, if you don't already feel bad already. Imagine, well, I'm going to make you feel good first, because then comparatively you'll feel worse when I make you feel bad. Imagine, I don't want you to imagine, well, you can imagine, but I want you to feel. But so imagine that everything you wanted to be as a person, the character, the qualities, the sense control, the way you deal with other people, the way you deal with yourself, imagine that's how you lived 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whatever you valued, you did, you lived it every moment of the day. Now just imagine and allow yourself to feel. How would you feel if you lived like that? Amazing, right? Can you feel how you would feel? Right? All right, how do you feel right now in your miserable life where you don't do that? Not so good, right? How do you feel when you want to be one thing, one person with certain character, and you're exactly 180 degrees opposite? How do you feel? I'm going to make a bold statement. I think that is amongst the worst feelings a human being can experience. You agree? Isn't it? When you know what to do and you value it, and you would be so happy if you could be that person and you do the exact opposite. Like, what is a worse feeling than that? Yes? And that, the definition of self-care is when you live the person you want to be. And you run your life in a way that you will always do those things which will nurture that person, that being you want to be. And the opposite of self-care is what? It's self-hatred. It's self-destruction. And so when we don't do that, we're self-harm. When we don't do that, we're harming ourselves. Yes? I know I should do this. I know it'll be the best thing for me, and I do something else. So I'm harming myself. Self-love, self-care would be, I know I should do this, and I'm going to do this because it's the best thing for me. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah. We have to go level by level, because everything I say after the last statement is based on you understanding the previous statement. So, let's go back to our definition. Everything favorable for bhakti is self-care. Everything against what is favorable for bhakti is as Prabhupada says, self-hatred, self-destruction, whatever word you want to use. The antonym to self-care, the antonym to self-love. We're going to do an exercise later, but I want to throw this idea out in your head. I want to tell you what's happened in the other workshops. This is amazing. This is like, I didn't even know this when I started teaching this course. I didn't know this was going to happen. But by the end of the first course I did, I asked devotees the question, what do you think in your life would change if you had more self-care? And basically they said everything. Like, there would be nothing bad in my life if I had more self-care. I wouldn't allow anything bad in my life. I would only allow good things. And then when they look back at their life and they did things that were harmful, they realized it's because I didn't have enough self-care. I allowed this person to mistreat me. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't control myself because I didn't care enough about my own sense control. What about this one? This is really, really interesting. If you cared more about yourself, would your japa be better? Yeah, of course some of you are saying, Prabhu, it couldn't get any worse. Oh, it's like at the bottom, No, that's not the answer we're looking for. Yeah. The answer we're looking for is, if you care more about yourself, everything would get better. All those little things where you say, you know what you said on January 1st that I'm going to do, that you did for 3 days and you stopped? Like all of that, you would do it if you cared more about yourself. So I'm basing this course on a premise that all these things you're having difficulty with, if you had more self-care, you would not have difficulty with. And so we asked the devotees, if you had more self-care, what in your life would change? And they just went down a list and they said, everything. I heard a very famous counselor, therapist say, who's been doing this for like 30 years. And she said, at the root of every issue I've ever dealt with was a lack of self-care and a lack of self-love. I was like, wow, that's amazing. All right, if I had more self-love, would I be better at blank? Yes, I would be. If I had more self-love, would I be able to overcome my procrastination of blank? Of course I would. Why? Because I cared. So, we were talking in the car yesterday. Isn't it interesting? Have you ever done this? You've like told somebody to do something that you yourself don't even do? Have you ever done that? You know, Prabhu, I think what you should do is, this. And you're just hoping they don't ask, well, do you do that? Because, and this happens with parents all the time, the parents are saying, do this, do this. Why? Because you never did it and now you're suffering because you didn't do it, so you want them to do it, right? Because you love them, you want them to do it. Because I love you, I will tell you, you should chant your rounds this way. It'll be good for you. You should not eat this, and you should get up at this time, and you should deal with devotees this way. It'll be good for you. Because I want the best for you. What is so interesting is we generally or often want the best for others more than we're willing to give ourselves. Isn't that interesting? Like, I want you to chant good japa. When I sit down, I don't necessarily do what I just told you to do. Like, I love you more than I love myself. It doesn't work. Your life can't work that way. Where you're giving more affection to other people than you give to yourself. At least it has to be equal. Does that make sense to you? So what we found in the workshop is that many of us, treat others better than we treat ourselves. Nicer, kinder, more understanding. Have you ever called yourself stupid? You ever done something stupid and told yourself, how could you do that? You're so stupid. Ever said that? No, that's not the way to answer the question. Has anyone ever not said that? Okay, now, because you don't raise your hands, I have to ask you a question where no one has to raise their hand. Well, what? You're so stupid. You're so lazy. You fail at something. And you go, I'm useless. I feel like a failure. And if your best friend failed at something, you wouldn't go up to him, hey, Prabhu, you're useless. You might as well just give up. You wouldn't say that, would you? Of course not. What would you say? You tried. You did a good job. Let's just keep going. It's not about succeeding. It's about devotion and sincerity. That's what you would say. Yes? 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 Just so you know, when I ask for a response, if you don't all say, I'll keep asking until we get it, and then we can go on to the next point, right? Hare Krishna. Don't you find that interesting? Yes. Now if we cannot treat ourselves with the same kindness, acceptance, love, and respect as we treat another person, there is something wrong with us. And I'm not going to ask you if you agree or not, because it's true, whether you agree or not. It's a fact. And I think it should be obvious. I treat others with kindness, acceptance, love, encouragement, and I treat myself the opposite way. Now, yesterday in class, we were in Delhi, and the devotee was saying something, and maybe you're thinking about this also. He was saying something, but he said, I was saying You know, negativity doesn't help you. And I made a very profound statement as to why. You want to hear my profound statement as to why negativity doesn't help you? Would you like to hear it? It's very deep. Are you ready for this? Profound wisdom from Mahatma. Because it's negative. Yeah. You knew I was a genius, right? Because it's... Why doesn't negativity help you? Because it's negative? Yeah, exactly, right? So we think that negativity is a motivator, right? And this has been studied. And what they found is negativity can motivate you temporarily, but it's not a permanent motivator, right? So let me give you an example. You have a child, and being bona fide Indian parents, unless they get the best marks in the school, you're ready to hang them when they come home, right? The rope is here. So I want to see your report card, because if it wasn't, if you're not getting to IIT, you're going for your next life, you can try again. Right? And so he comes home and he didn't do, he wasn't in the top 10 or 5% or whatever you wanted him or her to be. And so what would be the best way to motivate them? Well, if you're a bona fide Indian, you jump and scream and yell and tell them, right? I mean, I'm playing with you, but I'm over-exaggerating. Not all parents do that, but it does happen, right? India, outside of India, wherever. But if they're not doing well in school, and some kids do not do well in school, they're not, like people like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and the Microsoft, what's his name? Bill Gates. They weren't into school. It was just not their thing. They didn't do well. They all dropped out, right? So they're doing okay. They did okay, right? Dropping out. So not everybody, So what would encourage them to improve and say, well, you tried hard and, don't worry, and can I help you, and what's the issue, and maybe, maybe IT is not your thing, maybe you do something positive, and that would be motivating, right? But just, you're so stupid, how could you do that, you're a disgrace to the family. Like, how inspiring is that going to be, right? Like in the Three Idiots movie, so inspiring you want to kill yourself, right? That was the theme, isn't it, of that movie? So what they found is that negativity might motivate you a little bit. I got to do better, that was bad. But in the long run, it doesn't, because it's negative. And so sometimes we're very hard on ourselves. Have you ever been hard on yourself? Let's do better, It's okay, but sometimes it can be taken in a wrong way, and so it's very negative. And so we end up treating ourselves in ways we would never treat anybody else. Isn't that weird? Isn't it? Yeah, it's strange. And so if you fail, not if you fail, when you're not perfect, when you don't do as well as you could do, a person who has self-care, self-acceptance, self-love takes it in a very different way than someone who doesn't. And someone who has self-care is like, okay, I'm normal, I'm human, I make mistakes, I'm not perfect, I can do better, I can be better. I can be patient and tolerant with myself. That's self-care. That's self-love, self-acceptance. So when you become a devotee, you are given a goal to become a pure devotee. And so religious people, I believe, I haven't studied this, I'm making this assumption, I believe religious people have a very difficult time with self-acceptance. Because by our standards, none of us are acceptable, because we're not pure devotees, right? Like, here's your model, pure devotee. Like, how many of you are on that level of that pure devotee? Raise your hand if you are. Like I say, if you were, you wouldn't have taken birth. So just the fact that you have a body means, I guess you're not on that level yet. Otherwise, why did you need a body? So here's the standard we all have. You become a devotee. This is what's expected of you. You will have any material desires. You only want to serve Krishna 24/7, and you only want to sleep exactly as much as you need and not 1 second more. And you only want to eat exactly as much as you need and not 1 grain of rice more. And don't say this and do that. So we have this very high standard. Yes? We do, don't we? Like, especially in the Hare Krishnas, it's like really high, Your average just congregational member is like, way beyond most priests in terms of the rules, right? Because the priests can drink wine and eat meat, right? Your monks are drinking wine and eating meat, and your average congregational Hare Krishna doesn't do that. And we probably spend as much or more time praying than they do. So we have really high standards. So, I sometimes I see, maybe you've seen this also, if someone joins a religious movement and has a guilty conscience, what happens to them? What happens to their guilty conscience? Does it go away or get worse? Worse. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have a guilty conscience and if you want to feel guilty, join the Hare Krishna movement. Because we can help you feel guilty probably better than any organization out there. Yes? Isn't it? Prabhu, your tilak's not perfect. I just want to let you know, right? Go put it on. There's like a million things we can fault ourselves about. And so we have to be careful because the potential to be negative it's very real. I have this ideal of this very advanced devotee, pure devotee, and self-acceptance means I'm not there. I'm a normal human being struggling. And I don't want to be a normal human being struggling, but I am, and I have to accept that. And from that acceptance, I can grow. But if I don't accept that, what happens? I start becoming negative. And what does that negativity do? I'm pushing myself down. I'm working against myself. Oh, you're so bad, you're no good, you're not perfect. You ever feel like that? Like, I just feel bad. Why? I'm not a pure devotee, right? I have to tell you something, that when Prabhupada was here, nobody felt that way because Prabhupada was so encouraging. It was just like whatever we did, it's like, great, fantastic. Thank you very much. So he never made us feel bad. He always made us feel like, whatever you're doing is good. As long as you're sincere. So, I would ask you to monitor, well, maybe you don't realize this, but you talk to yourself. I mean, you must realize that you talk to yourself, right? Like, you ever have a conversation with yourself? It's weird, right? Who's talking to who? Isn't it? It's kind of weird, yeah. I don't want to philosophize about that, but the intellect, it's usually the intellect is talking to the conditioned soul, the covered soul, this is good, this is bad. But there's such an interesting phenomena going on that a lot of people, devotees, don't realize is that we have a relationship with ourselves. Just as you have a relationship with another person, you can treat them with love and respect and kindness and compassion. We have a relationship with ourselves, and we can treat ourselves with love, kindness, compassion, sympathy, and understanding, or we can treat ourselves harshly. We could be angry with ourselves, nasty with ourselves. Isn't that interesting? Did you know you have a relationship with yourself? Here's a really good example. It comes from the workshop on, I don't think we ever did this workshop, but I have a workshop on vows. This is so interesting. When you make a promise or a vow that you don't keep, what happens to your relationship with yourself? Because we have a relationship with ourselves. What happens to your relationship with yourself when you make a vow and you don't keep it? Well, don't answer yet. What happens to your relationship with another person when they make a promise and they don't keep it? Well, the same thing happens to your relationship with yourself when you make a promise and you don't keep it. Isn't that interesting? I lost respect for this person because they said they were going to do something, they didn't do it. I no longer can trust this person. In the same way, when you make a promise you don't keep, you lose trust and respect for yourself. Isn't that amazing? Have you ever said, no, I'm not going to promise to do that? Why? Because I can't trust myself. Have you ever said that or thought that? Isn't that interesting? We have this relationship with ourselves we're not even aware of. I hate myself when I do that. Well, why do you do it then? Why don't you just stop? Then you can love yourself for stopping. So when you start thinking that, oh, I have a relationship with myself, then self-care, it makes so much sense. Self-compassion, self-love, it all makes sense. Because if I don't do that, then I'm going to be harsh on myself. I'm going to be angry with myself. I'm going to put myself down, and so forth. Yes? Braj. Hare Krishna. Don't you think that's interesting? Losing, like you don't trust your, like how bad could that be that you don't even trust yourself to commit to something? Yes.
My question is, like we're talking about relationship with the self. There are songs of acharyas, Mana Kisera Vaishnava, for instance, with acharyas are also condemning the mind.
Yes.
So when they're condemning ourselves, they actually not condemning the soul. They're condemning the uncontrolled mind through the intelligence that you mind, you have made me suffer so much, now come to the grave, and then the casual the mind.
Yes, yes, yes.
So then, but at the same time we're talking about self-hatred. But as a soul, we cannot hate ourselves because we are the self. And only we may have a dissension with our subtle body.
We're hating our conditioned self. We're hating the conditioning. Yeah.
Or the conditioned subtle body is different from me. That's not me.
Yeah.
So, actually, we are hating is not the self, it's my conditioned subtle body.
Well, because Atma means body, mind, and soul, depending on how you use it. So in this sense, we can say the mind. I would say the conditioned self is the self we're hating. But you're intellectualizing and philosophizing it, but the actual emotional experience is what I'm talking about. So however you look at it, you misidentified yourself as the body or the mind, but that's the self that now is depressed. Right? Like if you're depressed, who's depressed? You say your mind's depressed, not you as the soul. But that entity that is, that ultimately it is the soul, because the soul is making the decisions. Isn't it?
But if we are doing it in a platform, because the chastising of the mind on a platform, I am different from the mind.
Yeah.
Is it also self-hatred?
Okay. It only is self-care if the result is good and it's done with a caring mood. So if you say, oh, you rascal mind, just think of the lotus feet of Krishna, and that works for you, yeah, that's self-care. But if you say, oh, you rascal mind, and you go into depression, then that's not self-care, obviously. It's because you deal with so many devotees, and you can't deal with every devotee in the same way because it doesn't work, right? So you know yourself, so like what would inspire you the most, right? Not artificially, just to be politically correct or look good, but what actually would inspire you. So maybe for you, you would say, oh, you rascal mind, and get out a broom and beat it, And maybe that would inspire you. Maybe for someone else, it's like, rascal mind, I'm just kind of like not really worry about you and let you bother me because I have better things to do. That may work for you, like just leave you alone, So it depends on the individual, but the overall idea is what is the best way to have a relationship with yourself that inspires and motivates you to be your best and to live in integrity with what you value. And so it's going to be different for different people. But as I was saying, generally, constant negativity, it's a kind of dysfunction. So if your negativity is not dysfunctional, it can work. But usually it's like, I hate myself, I don't like myself, I don't care about myself. It's very tamasic. So, yeah, I think maybe the best answer is if your negativity is sattvic, it's going to be good, and if it's not, it's going to be. If it's tamasic, no. And then,
I agree. We need appreciation to grow.
yeah. And there's another thing also, which is so important to understand. You know how it's saying we become guilty, it's so easy to become guilty when you're a devotee. It's also, if you have low self-esteem, this movement's going to make you even feel worse, because you're going to think, oh yeah, feeling bad about yourself is good, because that's what the acharyas do. So I have no self-esteem, it must be humility, And then you read the prayers of the acharyas, it's like, I'm the lowest of the low, and if people are happy, it makes me miserable, and I'm a despicable person, lower than a worm and stool, like that. And so we have these mentalities which are not pure. They're coming from the contamination of the material world. So I feel bad about myself. And, and then when I read what humility is, I go, oh, I must be very humble, because I have all these qualities. I don't like myself, I put myself down, I hate myself, I beat myself up. I must be very humble. No. If you were actually humble, you would be inspired by those things. So if those things don't inspire you, if they're making you unhappy and discouraged, how could that be real humility? It has to be something tamasic, right? So, lamentation is good. Lamentation and separation. But lamentation when you're, separated from sense gratification, that's also lamentation, but completely different. So, this is, it's like, in our movement, it's like we have competition. Who can be the most humble? Isn't it? Who has said the most bad things about themselves today? Let's give him a gold star, Let's, we have awards for book distribution. We'll have awards for humility. Who has said more bad things about themselves in the last week? Come on up and offer you a prize for being the most humble, right? And then he becomes very proud getting the prize of being the most humble, right? Yeah. So it's like for us to try to become humble, it so parallels dysfunction. Material, psychological, they're so close. And you have to discriminate between what is real humility and what is dysfunction. And we all know, if we're honest, that a lot of times we are acting humbly because we think that's what everyone expects of us. And I want to act properly, right? So we put on artificial humility so it could be, so I guess I'm doing the right thing, right? This is how to chant japa, this is how to take prasadam, and this is how to be humble. Kind of like that, So I do the act, I play the act. Genuinely, honestly, not knowing that I'm actually acting. Because how can you not act? You're just off the street, you're just a new bhakta, and you're trying to be humble. Like, how humble can we be? We just came from that world of competing with God, and the next day we're like humble. So we're, like, okay, this is how you're supposed to be, and yes, Prabhu, and you're the greatest, and I'm the worst, I've never seen an effulgence like yours, and but if you look at me, it's all black and dark, and you think that's what you're supposed to do, right? Isn't it? I'm supposed to do that, right? So who can be the most humble? So we don't want to promote a culture like that because it's artificial. That's not the goal. As I often say, this Prabhu comes up to you and says, Prabhu, I am lower than a worm and stool, because that's the politically correct thing to say, right? If you want to be humble, isn't it? Yeah, you can teach all the bhaktas that line, you know. Here's a few lines of humility. I'm lower than a worm and stool. I'm the most fallen, you know. Get all your lines down, right? And after that devotee tells you, I'm lower than a worm and stool, you find him 3 hours later talking to some other devotee about how bad you are. You ever seen that? Is there something wrong with this picture? Yeah, I think so. So what I'm trying to say is, if we're pushing devotees to be something they can't be, then we're only pushing them to be artificial, and we're only pushing them to show off, to get approval in the name of that kind of humility. All it is, it's a desire to get approval in the name of humility. That's all it is, isn't it? Prabhu, I'm lower than the worm and stool. Wow, he's really humble. Isn't it? I mean, yeah. It is. You don't have to agree with it, but I will confirm that in most cases it is. That humility is an attempt to be honored. What a paradox that is. Because how do you know how to be humble? You know, how do we know? Where do we come from? What do we know about humility? We're learning it. And so the humility exhibited by Narottam Das Thakur or Bhaktivinoda Thakur like that, it has nothing to do with where we're at. And we can't try to imitate that. And there's another thing also, is if you try to imitate somebody that you can't imitate, then you kind of create a culture where everybody has to look like a pure devotee, you know? And then if everyone has to look like a pure devotee, then how are we going to do the Guyam Akyati Prichtati? Because Guyam Akyati Prichtati is open your heart to the Vaishnavas. You know, well, you can't open your heart to the Vaishnavas because they'll see what's in it. And they'll see, oh, I'm just acting humbly because I'm proud. And I don't want to show that, because I just think I should show myself as perfected as I can be. And then you create an artificial environment. Whereas you want to create an environment where you can be open, vulnerable, admit your faults, because that's really humility. And that's Guyam Akyati Prichyati. So if you don't create a culture where everyone feels comfortable being open about their faults, then we all have to pretend not to have faults. And that will destroy us. If you have to pretend not to have faults and show others you don't have any fault, you will destroy yourself, because you will burn inside with all your faults and you'll have nobody to talk to about it. And you can't heal those faults if you can't talk about them. And then we'll just have a society of pretentious people pretending to look like pure devotees, where inside they go home and just cry because they're not. And then you can't be self-compassionate because you think everybody expects you to be better. Whereas, don't you think it's better if we can just accept ourselves as we are, as conditioned souls? Not that we rationalize failure, but we accept that we're doing our best, and this is my best is here, it's not here. The book says here, but I'm here. And that's humility, don't you think? To acknowledge where you're at. You know, this word self-compassion, we don't really use that word, do we? We use compassion for the fallen conditioned souls, isn't it? Yeah? Well, Prabhu, aren't you included in the fallen conditioned souls? I think so. So you have compassion for everybody, but you miss somebody, so it's not complete. You know, if you want to have complete compassion, you have to include yourself, right? So can you be compassionate upon yourself that, okay, I'm not perfect, but it's okay, I'm not supposed to be yet? You want to hear this amazing story? Oh, this is so beautiful. You want to hear it? We have 7 minutes. This story is like incredible. You want to hear it? Yeah. Good. Oh, this story. There are 2 stories, actually. Prabhupada gets a letter from a disciple. And I'm sure Prabhupada has received many letters like this. And the letter says, Prabhupada, I'm trying, I follow for a few months, and then I fall. And then I get up and I try, and I'm really determined, and I go in 3 months this time, and then I fall. And then I get up and I try, and I go 4 months and I fall. It means I'm breaking a principle or not chanting all my rounds. So, Prabhupada has just gotten this letter, and he has a couple in front of him, and they're saying, Srila Prabhupada, we're following all the principles, except we can't follow this one. And it wasn't illicit sex, it was actually drugs. They were smoking marijuana or something, due to some past samskars. And, they were chanting 16 rounds and doing the other principles and doing service, but they couldn't follow that principle, and they were talking to Prabhupada about it. And obviously feeling very bad about it. So Prabhupada called the secretary and he said, read this letter, the letter that I just mentioned. So they read the letter, Srila Prabhupada, I'm trying, but I want to get up and I try and I fall, and then I get up and I try and I fall. And Prabhupada looks to the couple and he glorifies the devotee who's falling, he glorifies him. Prabhupada says, just see how he's trying. Just how much he's trying. Wow. So Prabhupada's seeing the trying, and the devotee is seeing the failing. Isn't that interesting? What would be a more self-compassionate attitude? Wouldn't more self-compassion be to see yourself like Prabhupada saw you, that I'm trying? But most of us will see that I'm failing. Isn't that interesting? So the other letter, devotee gets another letter like this. He's trying, falling, and Prabhupada laughs. He said, you're just a young boy. Of course you're trying and falling, and you're just a young boy. Of course, you're not perfect. So falling could be falling in your mind also, right? But self-compassion, I had a similar experience. When you become a devotee, don't think that deeply rooted anarthas, you think, well, in 3 years they'll go away. If they didn't go away in 3, then 4. If not 4, 6. If not 6, 8. And then you get up to like 48 and you're like, is this actually going to go away? It's like, it's going away, but, it's like I still sometimes criticize devotees, and I still are envious of someone who's more respectful, and occasionally I see a beautiful woman and I lose my mind, and I thought that was going to go away 50 years ago. So I was thinking like that. I was kind of discouraged, looking at myself why would I be jealous, or still, why would I have any attraction for anything? And then I had a thought, which was so encouraging. You want to hear it? And it's very similar to what Prabhupada was saying. I had the thought, and I said, Mahatma Das. I was talking to myself like all crazy Hare Krishnas do. They talk to themselves, right? Mahatma Das. Even though you have still not purified yourself of these samskaras, this karma, these anarthas, you have never given into those your whole life, and you're still going on. And I thought for a moment, I said, wow, that's true. Now that is way more encouraging than thinking, after all these years, I'm still, isn't it? That's a self-compassionate way of looking at your problem, as opposed to thinking, I'm so bad, after all these years, I'm still attached. But there was so much positivity to it. After all these years, with these anarthas, I never gave in to them. That's like, wow. So did my situation change? It did not change at all. It's the exact same situation, but my attitude towards myself is different. And so because of the attitude, I'm inspired. Whereas with the wrong attitude, I'm like, what's the use? 50 years, I might as well give up. Does that make sense? So, although we don't use the word self-compassion, but if you study the way Prabhupada dealt with devotees, he dealt with them compassionately, and therefore I say that self-compassion means to give yourself the same compassion that your spiritual master gives you. The same love and kindness that Krishna and your Guru gives you, you give that to yourself. And if you don't, it's actually an offense to them because they're giving it to you and they want you to give it to yourself. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes, it makes sense. No? Should I say it again? Raise your hand if you're awake. Okay, I'm just checking. All right. We have seen some devotees die in these workshops. So periodically I need to check, We have a doctor here, he'll check your pulse, yeah. Because, it's like 2024, people are like used to like sitting and like listening to someone talk for more than 59 seconds, right? Isn't it? Yes. Yes. The mic is coming, yes. Self-compassion. Yeah. It's not he's saying, like, we do have standards and sometimes Prabhupada's heavy. The point is, you want to get to that standard, and what's the best way to get it? So is the best way to get it to beat yourself down? Or is the best way to get it through self-compassion? So think about it. Like you want to get here, and now you're here, and you have all these anarthas and faults. So no. Yeah. So this is a very good question. So it can feel like pampering. It can feel like you're rationalizing. It can feel like you're compromising, right? Yes? All of these things. Okay. So my question to you is, if you actually have self-care, self-love, compassion, would you compromise? Would you rationalize? Would you make excuses? No, you wouldn't. Because if you care for another devotee, you're not going to let them rationalize, compromise, or any of that. But you're going to find out what is the best way to inspire them, right? And so you're going to say, I know this devotee, and when he has difficulty, I say, Prabhu, everyone has that problem. But you're still going on. That's glorious. And then you see that inspires him. So you don't have to heavy him out. Because that inspiration, you see that he understands his fault, but you've been able to inspire him and he'll self-correct. And he's not lazy. And he wants to be better, right? So if you're using self-compassion to make you lazy, it's not self-compassion. Because self-compassion is going to bring you up. If it doesn't bring you up, it's not self-compassion. It's just tamagun. Does that make sense? So another question devotees ask is like, well, it's the same thing. If I care for myself so much, I'll get lazy. And I'll say, no, that's a contradiction. Because if you actually care for yourself, you will care for your spiritual life. And you won't be lazy about your spiritual life if you actually care for yourself. Right? So that's the safeguard. That real care means you care to do those things that will help you advance spiritually. And when you recognize that maybe I'm being hard on myself and it's not productive, and maybe being a little more positive and appreciative, right, would help. Now, Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't see what you do, he sees your sincerity, right? So let's say you went out to distribute books and all day you distributed one book and you come back and you're like depressed. But you actually tried harder than the devotees who distributed more books than you. And so your self-compassion and self-acceptance would be, you would acknowledge this, I really tried, I'm just not good at this. But I tried, and I know Krishna's pleased. And you'd come back as inspired as the other devotees. But if you have the wrong attitude, you just put yourself down. I'm useless, I'm so bad, what's the point? Maybe I'll move out of the ashram. I can't do anything, right? You know Sadaputta, the Hare Krishna genius, the most intelligent devotee that ever joined ISKCON, right? You think he was good on book distribution? Nah. He knew what he was good at, and he did it well, right? And so, all of us are good at something and really bad at something. So you could be really encouraged about what you're good at or really discouraged about what you're not good at, depending on your focus, right? So a self-compassionate person thinks, yeah, I'm not good at A, B, and C, but I have abilities in D, so let me focus on that and be happy and grateful that Krishna has given me these qualities and appreciate that I can engage them in Krishna's service and I can be inspired by that. But you could just as easily be not inspired because you focus on the things other people can do that you can't do, and then you become envious of them or you feel bad about yourself because you don't have those abilities, right? So ultimately, self-care means what is going to help you the most and what is the best way to deal with yourself. And I would just say from experience, for most of us, putting ourselves down, beating ourselves up, doesn't help. And it's not part of Krishna consciousness. We think it's humility, but it's very tamasic in most cases. Is that okay? Any other doubts? Yeah, good. All right, that's a good ending. So we're going to have prasadam. You're going to have prasadam. I already had prasadam. So, and we don't want to set a time to start again because we just want you to just come back after you take prasadam. So, the time depends on how quickly prasadam is served and, like that. So what I would just request you, take prasadam and just come back when you finish and don't hang. If you want to hang out and talk here because that way when you're all here, we can start again. Is that okay? All right. We have, we're going to celebrate today. Can you bring me a self-care affirmations? This book was just printed. We just got it yesterday. Self-care affirmation book. Well, you can bring the japa cards also. And the Hindi one, and the Hindi japa book. We have 3 things you've never seen before. Maybe 4. Well, 3. I have to show them. Oh, 4 things. Oh, this is the first temple that is seeing these 4 things. Well, not the first temple in India anyway, yeah. Okay. This is long overdue. This is japa affirmations in Hindi. Of course, you all speak English, but this was, japa affirmations book was like 8 years ago, and it never came out in Hindi. And now we have it in Hindi, and I'm so happy because this book is going to be appreciated by Hindi-speaking devotees. We have taken the japa affirmation book, which many of you have seen, and we put it onto cards. Each affirmation is on a card. And you can take these cards, and you can take them with you, and if you have a kurta with a pocket, you can put them in your pocket, and you can take it out, and you can read the affirmation on the card. And if you don't know what it means, it's explained on the back. And each card is an affirmation, and they're plastic, which means you can look at them while you eat gulab jamuns and drip the juice on the card, and you can still wash it. So that's why we made them plastic. So there's 20 cards, each one with an affirmation. And they're nice gifts also. And then, this was came out yesterday. We just got it. And this is perfect. Self-care affirmation book. So everything we're talking about may not be in this book, but you can definitely get the book, and all 20 affirmations will be here. And we also have the affirmations recorded, and they're available online. And I don't know if we have the QR code. We were supposed to have it, but anyway. So if you're interested, I don't know what it costs, maybe 100 rupees or something. It's a beautiful book. I think this book, these self-care affirmations, I think could change the culture of ISKCON. I really feel that. Like this, when you read this book, you probably feel the same way. And this is amazing. what this is it's the japa, where are my cards? It's the japa affirmation cards all in a poster. Is that cool or is that cool? Isn't that nice? So you can hang it up in the ashram, you can hang it up in your house, all 20 cards on a poster. So one of my missions in life is to help you chant better japa and also help you love yourself enough that you would chant better japa. So here are all the facilities right here. And then we have other books back there. And we also have USB sticks with the music, like what you just heard. And 50 hours of kirtans. And then we have like, I don't know, 700 hours of workshops and lectures and another USB stick. So it's all available in the back if you're interested. Hare Krishna. You want to say something?
Hare Krishna. So we're so thankful how the seminar is going so enlightening. So how many are coming back? Since Prabhuji said, take the prasadam. Prasadam is there down for everybody. It's 9:40 now. So take your prasadam and come back. If you want to do chit chat, take your chit chat here so that we can start the session on time.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we go 9:30 to, we'll come back, let's say start at 10:30 and we go till 1. And then we have prasadam and then up till 4:30. Okay. Okay, we'll do as much as we can. I've had devotees take this workshop 2 times, 3 times, and they say every time they take it, they get more out of it. So it's very, what we're talking about is, it takes time to process, digest, but this is just the beginning. So you can take this with you your whole life and practice it, okay? So we'll see you around 10:30 or so, or before. Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada. Nice to meet you. Finally back. It's because I turned down Pune for 3 years. So yeah, I'm here for a week. It's not a lot. Yeah, I should. I should have a plan. My daughter gets married. My dog gets married in 2 years. Then I'm going to build a place in Boston. Spend more time